The new Tecsun Pl 990X, a multi-band radio with some exciting features. We take a look.
The radio covers the long wave band from 100 kilohertz up through the medium wave band and into the short wave band up to 30 megahertz. And then on the VHF band it covers 64 to 108 megahertz. Now the VHF band is FM stereo only. It actually does cover the 70 megahertz ham radio band, but of course we're talking about wideband FM stereo, so unless it's a very local station, you're not going to hear too much on the 4 meter 70 megahertz band. Now the radio is well covered for SSB. We've got an SSB selector down there, and that gives us 4 ranges of selectivity. I'll cycle through them. We've got 500 hertz, 1.2, 2.3, 3 and 4 kilohertz. So that's quite good. That's very good for even for CW. So you've got quite a useful selection of bandwidths for SSB. You've got an excellent fine-tuning control, just there, I'll move that over, for single sideband and the coarse control there. There's an interesting control just down here, SSB and Sync. If you hold that control in there, you actually receive AM signals using what they call synchronized SSB. In other words, you're hearing both upper and lower sidebands. That's particularly useful if the AM station you're listening to, either on the medium wave band or on the short wave band, is noisy and going up and down in signal strength and get phase, what we call phase distortion. The radio's got a good speaker inside it, very reasonable size, as you can see there on the left, and bags of volume. I won't turn it all the way up, so it will blow the recording, but plenty of audio there. You will have noticed the pull-out desk stand that was showed in the opening video, and if we turn the radio down there, we can pull, just raise the camera a bit, we can pull the antenna into the vertical position there, so it makes a handy desktop operating position. It's got plenty of memories that can be selected there, or you can have direct frequency entry. Battery life seems to be excellent. You get 2 rechargeable batteries, and if you want to turn the display off, you can turn it off like that. And actually, as soon as you touch a control, that display will come on momentarily, and then once you leave it for a few seconds or so, the display will go off just like that. The radio is a triple conversion, super het. First IF is 54 megahertz, I think. Then it goes down to 10.7 megahertz, and then finally down to 45 kilohertz DSP. So it's almost like a SDR processor on the final conversion. I'm on SSB at the moment, and interestingly, if you're on SSB and you press the band switch, it actually goes through the ham band. So we're on 160 meters, 80 meters, 60 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters. This is an odd one, I'm not quite sure what 13 point whatever it is. 20 meters, 17 meters, 15 meters, 12 meters, and 10 meters. So it's quite an interesting feature. It's unusual in a multi-band radio that you can actually cycle through the ham bands. If I zoom in, you can see the USB socket there, and that's used for charging the battery inside the radio. It's also got another use, which I'll come back to shortly. As well as the telescopic aerial, the radio uses an inbuilt ferrite rod for long wave and medium wave. But on the shortwave bands, there's a switch here. You can switch from the whip to an external aerial, and there's a socket there. And also you've got 3 levels of gain, front-end gain. And also they supply one of these pull-out antennas, you know, rather like a tape measure. You pull it out, and it's got an attachment at the other end for clipping onto something, because this becomes the far end of the aerial, and that is the bit that goes into the antenna socket on the radio. Now, I mentioned a couple of things that I hadn't really spotted until I read the manual. Conveniently, by the way, there's a reset button there. You can put a paper clip in or a ballpoint pen and reset the radio. But there's a SD card, and there's an SD card actually supplied with a radio, and I hadn't noticed that socket. And it started to make sense when I looked at the front panel. On the front panel here, you've got controls like rewind and fast forward, etc., which didn't really make sense until I suddenly realised that on the radio here, it says radio MP3. And if you hold this MP3 control in for about 2 seconds, it switches to the player. We can hear the MP3 player playing. Now, there's no means of recording on the radio, but if you've got a pre-recorded MP3 file or program or whatever on one of the micro SD cards, you can slot it in and take it with you, and you've got music of your choice to listen to if all else is pretty boring. On the top of the radio, you've got the snooze, which gives you the clue that there's an alarm built in. Of course, you've got a clock, and also you've got a display button there which allows you to, believe it or not, either select S meter or signal to noise ratio, and you've got a lock key there if you want to lock the radio. Now, if you look on the button there, you'll see it says radio MP3. But if I quickly press that button, it goes into something called PC. I've plugged the USB lead into the side of the radio there, and the lead then goes into the USB port. I've got a MacBook Pro here, so I have to have an adapter, but that's a standard USB socket there, which goes into the computer. Now, if I move the camera over here, you'll see at the moment the sound is set to internal. I need to bring that down to the USB 2. There we are, that's on USB 2 now. Now, if I come across here to a YouTube video, it starts to play. Here we are with the radio set to PC, and if I turn the audio up, on suspicion, you'll hear the audio. In Ethel G's shopping bag. And the great thing about that, of course, is that you get much louder and much better quality audio than you would from the internal speaker on your laptop. Well, finally, let's see the radio actually in action.
This is Harvey Cook.
Thank you. Hello, thank you.
Delta Kilo 7, Bravo June Match, attached to radio 59.
Air level now only about 5 centimeters or 2 inches.
Businesses have had stop-start support as well, rather than some consistency.
The new PL 990X. Check it out now.